Hello, hello, hello. Can y'all hear me now? Look at all the Critical Chris fans out there. Absolutely hilarious. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Critical Chris on Politics. This is our third episode. As the title suggests, although the title is incorrect, we will be covering Carney and Brookfield. Seeing as Parliament is currently on recess for 2 weeks, we're going to do a little bit of investigative reporting together. So, how many of you guys know about Brookfield? Lots of hearts, lots of hearts. Can I get a 1 in the chat if you know about Brookfield? Can I speak clearer? Louder and clearer. I don't know if I can get any clearer. I'm like directly into the mic. Well, 1 sec. I might be able to do something here. How's this? Is that better? Check, check, check. Yeah? Okay. Starting to pick up a little bit of noise room, but that's okay. Awesome. Okay. So, Carney and Brookfield. Yesterday I spent about 6 hours researching this. And then once I started down this rabbit hole, because I've known a little bit about it for a while, but I've never really dug deep into it. Once I started down the rabbit hole, though, I realized that this is something you could really dive into for weeks and weeks and weeks and still not get to the bottom of it. I started going down these little side trails, and it's just every door you open leads to 10 more. So it's endless. So what I did is I forced myself to focus on one point, and specifically one point in time. And then I built what we're going to talk about today on that, rather than trying to figure out everything at once, because this might end up turning into something that could be like a multi-episode or multi-series topic, because yeah, there's a lot to it. So what we're going to start with today is specifically around December 31st, 2024. 2024. And it all starts with Mark Carney's hiring at Brookfield, which he was hired in August of 2020, as you can read here. Here's the title. This is directly from Brookfield's website. I will be providing all the sources as per usual on my website, which is officially live. There is some work that needs to be done on it, but you guys can go there at any time. You can contact me, make requests, etc., etc. Actually, I don't think I have the contact form ready to go yet, but it's criticalchris.com. There you'll be able to find amendments, sources, links to my videos, and any sort of resources that we need over time. You guys can give me ideas for that kind of stuff too in the future. Anyways, so in 2020, Brookfield announces the appointment of Mark Carney as vice chair and head of ESG and impact fund investing. If you guys have any questions, I think this is going to be a free-for-all chat today because it's so deep. You guys might have a million questions, so I don't mind being interrupted today. So yeah, feel free to ask whatever you need to ask and say what you need to say. I'll just be answering questions. So I'll ignore all the comments unless it pertains to the topic. So, Brookfield Asset Management, these are the stock tickers. Today announced the appointment of Mark Carney as Vice Chair and Head of ESG and Impact Fund Investing. Mark brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to his role at Brookfield. He is currently the United Nations Special Envoy for Climate Action, focus on that right there, climate action, important, and finance, and is a long-time advocate for sustainability, specifically with regard to the management and reduction of climate risks. All right, so this happens in 2020. We're just going over a little bit of history around what he did with Brookfield. So in 2021, July of 2021, Brookfield announces initial U.S. $7 billion closing for Brookfield Global Transition Fund. So there's a bunch of people who invested in this fund. It was closed by Brookfield, and it started off as $7 billion. All right, let's see. There's a hard cap of $12.5 billion. Brookfield Asset Management, again, stock tickers, today announced an initial U.S. $7 billion closing for the Brookfield Global Transition Fund, establishing BGTF, which will later be called BGTF1 because they started a second fund later on, as the largest fund focused on global transition to a net zero economy. I'm sure you guys have heard that one before. At least some of you have. Net zero is a very common term that is used amongst certain politicians and leaders from around the world. The fund will build on Brookfield's leadership in renewable power and deep operating capabilities to scale clean energy and invest capital to catalyze the transformation of carbon-intensive yada, 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 yada. Oh, I like that they say Paris alignment. That's in reference to the Paris Accords that most Western nations signs onto, although I think Trump removed himself from that. I'm not making that claim, though, because I don't want to have to amend that statement. So that's just an I think phrase. Onward and upward. All right. Brookfield raises record $15 billion for inaugural global transition fund. Largest private fund ever raised to support the transition to net zero. The fund invests in the transformation of carbon-intensive industries as well as development and accessibility of clean energy. $2.5 billion of capital deployed or allocated to date. As you can see, stock ticker again, they announced today it has reached the final institutional close for Brookfield Global Transition Fund. This is number 1, not number 2, with total capital raised of $15 billion, making it the world's largest private fund dedicated to blah, blah. We've already been through this. Same stuff over and over again. All right, in 2024, they started a completely separate fund, but it has very similar goals. Again, Mark Carney was the chair at the time of this. Let's see what Mark Carney has to say about this. These anchor commitments from CDPQ. Oh, that's an interesting name right there. We're going to come back to that at a later video. Man, even as I'm reading this, I'm discovering stuff that triggers to something else that I read that has a connection to another person that I was reading about, and it's like a spider web of things that interconnect that is just blowing my mind right now. Anyways, from CDPQ, GIC, Prudential, and Temasek demonstrate significant momentum for the Catalytic Transition Fund. He goes on about this and how amazing it is. All right. And then finally, we announce the second, so this actually, the Catalyst one was following the announcement of the second Global Transition Fund. So they raised the first fund, it's a huge success. Then they start the second one, and then they start the Catalyst Fund. Anyway, so they have these 3 funds. They raise them. They raise a bunch of money. Carney is the vice chair of Brookfield for 4 years, during which he is highly successful. He makes them a ton of money. I could go into much more detail, but I'm going to go into that at a later date. That's not entirely our focus. I just wanted to give a little bit of a background as to what his role was with Brookfield. And that's pretty much what it was. He was deeply embedded at one of the world's largest alternative asset managers. That's what Brookfield is. And his job was to build and lead its flagship climate transition investment platform. That's the important part, is the climate investment platform. That's something that Mark Carney's been driving for years and years and years and years. And we'll get into the authenticity of that goal at a later date again. Like I said, there's so much stuff I could cover. We could have this podcast run for hours, and we wouldn't even scratch the surface. So just try to hang with me here. All right, so now we're going to move on to a very important, we're going to cut that out. You guys don't need to see that. Okay, so moving on to December 31st of 2024. This is when Brookfield announces its annual report, as you can see here. I already clicked on it, so we're going to go down here. There's some important stuff found within this report, so we're just going to search for it together. Okay, so on January 16th of 2025, BAM announced the appointment of Bruce Flatt as chair of the board. He was already the CEO, but they announced him as chair of the board to replace Mark Carney, who on the same day announced his candidacy for leadership of the Liberal Party of Canada. Concurrent with the launch of Mr. Carney's campaign, Brookfield accepted his resignation from BAM. Notice the date here, January 16, 2025. This is 2 weeks after their 2024 report. What we're going to look at here is outstanding options as at December 31st, 2024. Is anyone familiar with this yet? Has anyone seen this before? Or is this new information for you guys? And are some of you guys saying, what the hell are we looking at and why? We got 6 people watching. That's fantastic. No people talking. I guess you guys are very interested in what I'm saying. Okay, that's fine. Let's continue going then. Okay, so what this table is showing, it says right here, the following table shows the number and market value of unexercised options awarded to and held by the BAM directors at December 31st, 2024. This is Mark Carney. Mark Carney was awarded stock options, right? And if you don't know what stock options are, that is basically, oh, Dad, you do know this. Oh, that's cool. Or maybe you're saying yes to something else. What stock options are the ability to purchase stock in the future at a predetermined price that was determined at the time that you received those stocks. So this is what Mark Carney was given as of December 31st, 2024 by Brookfield. So this was awarded to him for his role as the chair of the board, as well as his other roles within Brookfield. Now, this is just one point. Like I said, I'm focusing on one point out of many different things that we could talk about in the future, but I just want to focus on this. Now, specifically the date, December 31st, 2024, 2 weeks before he resigns and moves on to Liberal candidate for the Prime Minister. So, Mark Carney, he's awarded stock options for, I believe this is for BAM, yeah, and it's options of 209,300 shares at $35.13 a share, which has a market value of unexercised options of $3.9 million there, right? And then he's awarded a secondary set of unexercised options of 200,000 at $40 a share, equaling 2.8,320,000. Totaling 608,892. That is at the time that the options were evaluated. So this was filed with the U.S. SEC Department. Every year, the company in question, a public company, has to report what's called a 10K for the fiscal year, and their fiscal year ends December 31st of every year. So this is all just for 2024. So what this is saying is that Carney held 409,300 unexercised stock options with an average price of, between those two, is $37.54 and an aggregate intrinsic value of $6.8 million as at year end. So if you read, where is it? Oh, right here. So option expiration date. What that means is he has until these dates with each group of stocks to actually purchase these stocks. So I'll try and explain this a little bit further. So this is a long investigative report, Dad. If you can't focus, then attention elsewhere. This isn't like a quick one. So now you just threw me off. So he has until February 15th of 2033 to purchase these stocks. But no matter when he purchases them, he's going to be able to purchase them at this price, regardless of what the market value is of the stocks at the time. So let's say Brookfield goes up by $40 in value per share in 5 years' time. He can still purchase them at $35.13, and then he gets to pocket the cash, the instant profit, the instant equity that he gains from the increased value of the stock at that time. It's like buying a house today, it's like signing a title today for a house, saying I'm going to pay $300,000 for this house, and then 10 years from now that house is worth $1.5 million, and you still only have to pay $300,000. You now have a house worth $1.5 million that you only paid $300,000 for. That's essentially what he's doing for these 409,300 stock shares of these stocks. All right. Has everyone understand at this point? I'm assuming yes. Okay. During this filing, they also disclosed his salary. We don't need to worry about that too much. Basically, it was revealed that Carney and two other chairs, somewhat. I know it's. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll try and clarify. Anyway, so his salary was also revealed. Between him and two other people, their salaries were revealed at $7.5 million plus bonuses plus $67,439 in retirement savings. It's not extremely important, but just adds a little bit of context to the situation. Okay, so 2 weeks later, 2 weeks after this, he announces that he's running for prime minister. And we will switch over to a little video here. Let's listen to him talk for a minute.
Our climate is changing in ways that threatens livelihoods from Fort Mac to Fort Smith. And then on top of that, as George just mentioned, in just 4 days, the United States will swear in Donald Trump as their 47th president, a man who threatens economic force on his close...
Anyways, we don't need to watch this for very long. I can send the link for this as well. But point being, he makes the announcement that he's jumping to prime minister. He announces his candidacy 2 weeks after this. And in the speech, he touches heavily on climate change. Now, remember, his focus with Brookfield was heavily focused on climate change. And all of the funds that he raised and a lot of the funds that Brookfield touches in general have to do with climate change, positive movement towards climate change action, things like that, net zero policy and stuff like that. And if they successfully invest in those movements, that company makes a lot of money. In this speech, he touches heavily on climate change. He touched on climate change and its threat to society. Says that the government doesn't invest enough in the environment. And then he also talks about how if he's going to replace the carbon tax, now remember, it was polling positively amongst the entire populace, liberal, conservative, regardless of what you believed in, that the carbon tax should be removed. And so he jumped on that when he made his bid for prime minister. And so he said, I'm going to remove the carbon tax. But what people don't realize is he didn't really replace the carbon tax, but he essentially said, even during his initial campaign speech, that if he was going to replace the carbon tax, he had to replace it with something more effective. And we'll touch on that another day. But that was just campaign marketing at its absolute best. Okay. So here's where things get a little bit interesting. Okay, so after he becomes prime minister, he has to, under the Conflict of Interest Act, place every reportable financial asset, including the roughly $6.8 million in Brookfield stock options, which he hasn't exercised yet. Company makes money, stocks go up, options go up, elbows go up, and his wallet goes up. You betcha. You're starting to catch on. Everybody, look at what Paul has to say, and you'll start to catch on with what's going on here. So anyway, when he becomes prime minister in March, under the Conflict of Interest Act, he has to place every reportable financial asset, including roughly $6.8 million in Brookfield stock options, into what's called a blind trust. The Ethics Commissioner published a detailed list of those assets in July of 2025. Now, I want to make a note here that none of the evaluations for the assets ended up being listed. They list the name of the assets. They list the that's it, actually. The name of the assets and the name of the companies that the assets were under, but you don't know about the value of the assets. You don't know how much they're worth. You don't know how many stocks he has. You don't know how many shares he has. So it's very limited. And then he also has to approve an ethics screen, which is, oddly enough, we're going to look into this a little bit more, is only, in his case, touches on a few dozen of his assets. And I'm going to explain what all this is a little bit further in detail in a moment. So what does the blind trust entail? Under Section 27 of the Conflict of Interest Act, Carney divested all of his controlled assets other than personal real estate and cash into a blind trust by mid-March 2025. The trust was established and approved by the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, this one's a mouthful, Conrad von Finkenstein, prior to Carney's swearing in as Prime Minister on March 14th. Regarding Conrad, I just want to touch on that just briefly. There's a huge rabbit hole when it comes to ethics concerns and some of the decisions he's made as commissioner and throughout his prior appointments as well. But we're going to touch on that another day. But I just want to emphasize the fact that he's not squeaky clean either. All right, back to the blind trust. So the trustee is statutorily required to be at what's called arm's length. No prior personal or professional relationship can exist between him and Mark Carney, especially when it comes to disclosing portfolio compensation and trading details. And we will take a look at this here. So where are we? This is Section 27. So this is what covers the entire Conflict of Interest Act as it pertains to Mark Carney. So let's see here. The terms of a blind trust must provide that the assets that be placed in a trust shall be registered to the trustee. This is just going over the procedure and protocol that he has to follow when placing it in a trust. Just bear with me for a second. There's a lot here, and I have to kind of find my place. This is doing a huge report like this is completely new to me, so I might get a little lost here and there. Okay, so what we're going to look at here is what came about out of when they investigated his stocks and his options and all that kind of stuff. Everything that he had as in terms of assets, he had to disclose. And so they disclosed all this. Like I said earlier, they disclosed all of his assets, but they didn't show the quantity. They didn't show how much of each asset he has or anything like that. So we'll just quickly read through this. As pertaining to the Conflict of Interest Act, appendix to the summary statement of the Right and Honourable, love that word, Honourable, Mark J. Carney, Prime Minister of Canada. Divestment of the following in a blind trust established pursuant to Section 27 of the Act. So he has a self-administered RRSP holding one or more securities or funds that would be considered controlled assets meaning that they can be affected by government policies if held outside of the plan. So these are lists of all the companies that he has assets involved in. So there's shares of North of 40s Advisors. I'm going to be going through all of these companies in the future because I want to kind of dig deep into what kind of assets does he have, what kind of interest does he have, and how can he benefit by building policy and shaping policy around these. Like I said, today we're just focusing on one little part of Brookfield. There's Stripe Inc. Some of you guys may have heard of Stripe. That's a pretty commonly known company. There's Partner Value Investment. There's options and deferred share. This is what we were talking about earlier. Options and deferred shared units. So he hadn't actually acted upon this yet. So that money is still outstanding. Those stocks are still outstanding, which means that which to me is absolutely mind-blowing because, and I'm going to explain this a little bit further down, but yeah, I'm not going to explain it now. I'll explain a little bit further down. So he still has outstanding deferred share units of Brookfield Corporation. Options and deferred share units of Brookfield Asset Management. So he has two different sets of these. I was only able to find one. I don't know if these are related, if they're the same thing, or if these are two completely different things. And then there's this one, another Brookfield Global Transition Fund asset that he has, Cultival Land PBC, Watershed Technology Incorporated, and then each of these securities down below. Now, this is French on the right, so this isn't different ones left to right. These are just on the left is your English and on the right is your French. But let's just scroll quickly through these. These are all assets that Mark Carney has shares of. Which means these are all assets that he has a vested interest in. And it goes on and on and on. This is the list that never ends. These stocks go on, my friends. All right, I think you can kind of get the picture of where we're going at this point. All right, so they place his money in a blind trust, right? Okay. I wanted to touch on something else real quick. Okay, yeah, we'll get up to that. We're going to touch on this again a little bit more later. We're going to jump to earlier I mentioned what was called the... Oh, actually, sorry. Jumping back and forth. I have a lot of information written down here. Oh. My fiance just hiccuped. Okay, so I already read that. Okay, so he's prohibited from disclosing portfolio composition or trading details to Carney. But we're going to come back to this idea of what's called high-level instructions later. All right, so the Ethics Commissioner's summary, statement, and 16-page appendix, which we just read, regarding the trust was released in July of 2025. Now, there was a big stink made about this. I remember this from July. There was a lot of people reporting on this. And so he itemized and every security transferred into the blind trust. Now, separately, under Section 29 of the Conflict of Interest Act, a conflict of interest screen was agreed between Carney and the commissioner. It applies only to, see, this is what's interesting. It only applies to specific Brookfield Asset Management, Brookfield Corporation, Stripe, and 100 subsidiary controlled entities of which Carney was aware on the blind trust establishment date. Now, when it says when he was aware, that's like hyphenated, he was aware. The screen is administered by the Chief of Staff and Clerk of Privy Council. We'll touch on this in a second. Carney is barred from participating in or receiving information about matters that could affect the names of those entities, but may participate in matters of general application. So what that means is, out of the list of, let's say, 1,900 different assets that he's a part of, only 105, I believe. Now, you guys can fact check me on this, and I can make an amendment later on if necessary, but I believe it's only 105. Roughly 5% of his entire asset load is he being screened on. And what that means is, whenever the government or his cabinet or anyone is talking about policy that could affect those entities that are being screened, he has to leave the room. He can't partake in any of that talking. But like I said, that only applies to 5% of all the assets that he's invested in. So of the 95% that he's not being screened on, he's allowed to partake in. Now, what's more, I said a second ago that we're going to touch on who the people are that are screening him. So there's people who are in charge of saying, hey, Carney, you got to leave the room. And those people are the Chief of Staff, Clerk, and the Clerk of Privy Council. Now, this is something that goes very deep that I'm going to have to cover in another video because I don't have time to get into it today. But who selects the chief of staff and clerk of the Privy Council? You probably guessed it, Mark Carney himself. So he selects his own minister and his own Privy Council, or the clerk of the Privy Council and Security to the cabinet. And who did he select? He selected Marc-Andre Blanchard for the chief of staff. Like I said, we're going to get into that in another day, but that selection is very important. Let's just say there's a lot of historical ties between those two. And the same thing with his selection for the Privy Council, Michael Sabia. The appointment for both of those was June 11th and July 7th, which was prior to the ethics report that was released. Honestly, what we could get into about the ties between these three people showcases that this entire screening process is a complete farce. The whole thing. Let's just say, and I'm going to say this without a shadow of a doubt, all three of these people benefit from what could be policy decisions that affect positive growth of Brookfield and other companies. And those are the people by law that were selected to screen Carney to make sure he doesn't make any policy decisions around his 105, which is only, like I said, 5% of his entire assets. But I'm assuming those 105 are his biggest assets, and they were the ones selected to screen him on those. Now let's touch on the screening. So these are the, it's 103. Sorry, I'm amending myself right now. It's 103 assets, not 105. These are the ones, and he gets to choose. This is the best part. He gets to choose which assets are screened and which ones aren't. And these are the ones that he chose. So, and he said, this is Mark Carney who wrote this himself. So I'm going to get into how this whole process works in a second too. I'm sorry if this is a little bit all over the place. This is my first time doing a live show on something as deep and convoluted as this is. So I'm trying my best here. So he says, I have included in this annex my reasons for including each of the entities listed below. Entities being screened because I had a management position and an oversight role in respect of their investing activities on or prior to January 2025. These are all the companies. So Brookfield Asset Management, we talked about that, and the stock options he was awarded. And then there's all these other companies here. Now remember, who's doing the screening? That's right. People who stand to benefit and stand to gain from the same things he does, but they're probably legitimate. Let's be real. It's nothing but honesty and integrity from these people. So letter B, entities being screened because they are Brookfield portfolio companies that appear in the registry of lobbyists maintained by the Office of the Commissioner of Lobbying of Canada, which is wild in and of itself. Entities being screened out of an abundance of caution because they have been identified by the Office of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner based on the public record as of the date of the establishment of the Prime Minister's Blind Trust as being Brookfield related, even though I had no role in managing them. So he's saying that these specific entities, he didn't have a direct management role with them, but he could have been connected to them in some other way. He says he has no direct financial interest in them. Anyway, so like I said, 103 out of over 1,000. I think it might have been 1,900. There's a Parliamentary Committee we're going to get to soon. Okay, so we've covered who administers the screening. All right, so there have been... Actually, you know what?
The nature of the discussions.
So this one's pretty interesting. This is a report covered by CPAC when he was asked about this. So let's just give this a listen to real quick.
Discussions I had with the President of France, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, the Leader of the Opposition would not be capable of having those discussions because the Leader of Opposition refuses to get his security clearance, something that it took me a few weeks to get. And he has been the Leader of the Opposition for 3 years. So I comply with my responsibilities. I comply with the rules well in advance. And the Leader of the Opposition doesn't take his responsibilities at a time of, well, you should take these responsibilities at any time. but is particularly remarkable given the stakes in global geopolitics at the moment.
The rules say that those assets should be publicly disclosed within 120 days, which means you'll campaign in a coming federal election, most likely within the next 120 days, and are serving as Prime Minister now, with Canadians not being aware of what potential conflicts of interest you sought to avoid.
What possible conflict would you have, Stephanie? Stephanie, I'm complying with the rules. I'm complying with the rules in advance. Point final.
Point final. Fantastic. I'm going to quickly jump into chat time. Dad, I saw your comment about these types shouldn't be live. After doing it right now, I kind of agree. It's a lot, and I'm kind of bouncing around a lot. I hope you guys are following along. The reason I wanted to do this live is because I wanted you guys to be able to partake in it, and I wanted you to be able to ask questions and give your comments and stuff. But I guess what I could have done is posted the video, and then you guys could have partook in a live discussion where we just go over the video after the fact. Then it would have been more clear and concise, and you guys probably would be able to follow along a little better. Are you guys confused yet, or do you see where I'm going with this? Is it at least making sense, even if it's kind of hard to follow? I was kind of afraid this would happen, by the way. Don't worry, we'll get to fun stuff in a bit. We're almost done with this. Somewhat sense. Okay. Do you have any questions? All right, number 3. Number 2, okay, you're good. Okay, that's fair enough, Dad. I know. I think out of everyone, you have the shortest attention span before you get bored. Okay, we'll continue on then. Don't worry, we're almost done, Dad. Then we'll move on to stuff that you'd probably be more interested in. Stuff that you're going to have more fun with. Okay, yeah, we will. Okay, anyways, so let's jump to the Parliamentary Committee where they cover the testimony of this. I'll post this here. So they cover a lot of this stuff in a committee where they're basically going over the conflict of interest. In this, again, I'm going to try and speed it up so you guys don't have to deal with this so much. But they touched on many of the issues that I just discussed, including the narrow screening. The committee testimony established that the screen has been invoked 13 times as of now. It's only been applied in 6 separate cases, and it only covers, like I said, 5% of Brookfield's total corporate holdings. It does not cover the remaining 95% of Brookfield's portfolio or matters of general application, like I said earlier. It does. So what that allows for is broad policy on energy, infrastructure, climate, or tax that can indirectly benefit the firm or Carney's options or holdings. So on those, Carney still knows exactly what he put in the trust. So this is what's interesting here. Carney knows exactly what he put into the trust. So even if it's in a blind trust who's supposed to be at an arm's reach, which we'll get into later, he knows exactly what he put into it. So regardless of the fact that he's not able to, quote unquote, make those investments himself throughout his time as Prime Minister, he knows what's in there. And he's able to give high level instructions at the time of the blind trust. So he can say to the person, don't sell these or sell these, things like that. The screen only covers 5 to 10% of Brookfield's overall corporate empire. Everything else, especially the other 1,900 Brookfield entities or the broader transitional investing sector, is fair game for him to influence as Prime Minister. Okay, so government policy decisions on energy, infrastructure, tax credits, and the green transition are also fair game. In other words, as I said, Carney can freely steer the big picture government. I'm not saying he is, although I probably will be saying he is in an actual... I'm going to do a regular video, not a live stream. We'll save the live streams for follow-ups and stuff. But in another video, I will be talking about how Carney is... how how he is definitely steering the ship to benefit Brookfield. And there's no question on that. His policies have been in that direction since day one. All right, now I just quickly want to look into the legitimacy of the blind trustee, the person who's in charge of his the blind trust. So, on top of the questionable ethics of the commissioner, now I don't know as of yet if those have anything to do with Carney himself. I just know that there's been a lot of complaints and a lot of questions regarding things that he's covered up that he should be releasing to the public. Let's look into the legitimacy of the blind trust, though. So I noted we would discuss high-level instructions earlier. This is a caveat in section 27.5, and I'll go back to that. Where are we at? Conflict of interest. 27.5. Here we go. Okay, so it says, despite subsection 4, general investment instructions may be included in a blind trust instrument or contract, but only with the prior approval of commissioner. The instructions may provide for proportions to be invested in various categories of risk, but may not be industry specific, except if they are legislative restrictions on the type of assets the public office holder may own. And then another interesting note here. We're going to talk about the NDP convention. Don't worry. I have stuff on that. I'm not going to leave you hanging. I just thought this was very interesting and thought you guys might be into this, but you're right. We don't need to keep rehashing the fact that I should have turned this into a video rather than a live stream. So I'm almost done. Hold your horses, people. Got to listen to my fans, especially the fan 2.0, 1.0, and 3.0. I'm pretty sure at least one of you who's not sitting together right now is probably interested in this, because that individual and I have talked about this at length. Anyways, under section 27.4 I to J of the Conflict of Interest Act, the trustee must be at arm's length and qualified, and the commissioner must be satisfied that an arm's length relationship exists. But what's interesting is that in practice, Carney's the one who actually proposes and selects the trustee. The way the law is written initially, it makes it sound like the commissioner's the one that selects the trustee, and Carney has no knowledge of who the trustee is, and it's supposed to be a trustee that has never met Carney and has no relationship with him, whether professional or personal. But in reality, Carney's the one that selects the trustee, and then he submits the trust for the ethics commissioner's approval. And so the commissioner himself does not appoint the trustee. He just reviews and approves the choice. And this is covered under, where is it? I gotta find it. This one. You can see a lot of this here. So, or it says what is required, blah, 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 blah. Controlled assets must divest. You know what? I'm going to put the link down below. I know you guys are 4.0 to come. You guys are probably over all of this right now. So who can serve as a trustee? Hey, I'll cover this later. But anyways, just trust what I'm saying. The link's here. You guys can go to the link later on if you don't believe me. I won't have to make an amendment on this because this is verbatim covered. And this is literally from the website of the Commissioner of Ethics of the Government of Canada. So, the arrangements follow the letter of the Conflict of Interest Act. The Brookfield options and holdings sit in an approved blind trust. However, the trustee was likely proposed by Carney and signed off by the Commissioner. And he also received high-level instructions and was allowed that were allowed to set up under Section 27.5, and the ethics screen applies to only roughly 103 named entities. So in practice, that leaves Carney knowing exactly what assets are in his trust, retaining long-dated upside exposure through the options that don't expire and that he hasn't acted on yet. So that's the 409,300 stock options that he currently has sitting, which he completely benefits. Okay, I believe it. Which he completely benefits from letting them sit while Brookfield grows. And he's free to shape broad government policies on energy infrastructure, tax credits, and the green transition everything outside the narrow screen, which is most likely a farce anyways, because he selected the people who are the ones that are doing the screening and are the ones that decide whether or not he's allowed to partake in these policy topics. That's a lot of stuff that he's allowed to be involved in that completely shape his own personal gain. Yet when he announced his speech, he was saying he's doing it for the betterment of Canada and he's putting Canada first. Another side note, the vast majority of his stocks are actually invested in the U.S. and not in Canada, including most of his Brookfield stocks. That was just a side note that I had read earlier. I did some research on his stocks. Okay, so I personally don't think that these formal rules sever the real-world connection between his past and the wider policy decisions he now controls as Prime Minister. The safeguards block a tiny slice of the company, and that's it. And the vast majority of his portfolio and the potential value of his holdings can still be shaped by his government's actions. Now, I'm going to go back to the stocks real quick. Actually, I've already explained that. So how he could benefit this is just one thing, how he could specifically benefit from that one thing that happened in December 31st of 2024. Like I said, there's going to be more videos in the future that explain the infinite other ways that he can benefit by directing his policy decisions, which, as you guys have seen, a lot of it has to do with net zero policy and stuff like that. So anytime you hear Mark Carney talking about net zero policy, what I'd like you to do is just remember this and how he's pretending like it benefits Canadians, when in reality we know for a fact that he benefits. But also, take a look at what our trade is like with China when it comes to things that don't promote environmentalism, like our trade relationship with China and coal. Yes, George Picky Kai, we will be talking about the NDP convention. Everyone keeps bringing that up. I got some videos for you, don't you worry. And we can laugh and go on with that. I'll be live with the chat that whole time because I don't have much to say. We're just going to be listening and laughing. Anyways, that's it for the Mark Carney report. Thank you for your patience on that. I know that was probably a lot. Does anyone have anything to say about that? And just so you guys know, I saved the best for last. I saved the NDP part for last. So we got a couple more things that I wanted to talk about before that, because I don't want you guys to leave after you're done with the NDP convention and then miss all this other good stuff. Okay. Chat time. Does anyone have anything they want to say about that? It was long-winded. It's very in-depth, and thank you for hanging on. You know what's interesting is that I think this is the most concurrent viewers I've had consistently, and it was probably the most arduous process I've had yet. That was very, very all over the place. Any thoughts on that, though? Am I the only one that thinks that's pretty wild? I want to see NDP clips, though. Yeah, there's a lot of... I have no idea who those people are, George. I don't know who you are either, but they just... Every time I put out a video, there's a new Critical Chris fan. Okay. You know what? I'm just gonna jump right to the NDP videos, because I know how excited you guys are about that. And then I have a couple other things to talk about if you guys want to if you guys want to stick around afterwards. I might be shooting myself in the foot here because it's harder to stay focused when you guys keep saying NDP convention. Imagine if I didn't post any videos from the NDP convention. How disappointed would you guys be? I'd lose all 6 of my fans. All right. We're going to start with, so regarding the NDP, so as you guys know, Avi Lewis won the NDP leadership race this weekend, which was held here in Winnipeg, unfortunately. Very disappointed about that, but naturally it happened here. We are the hub with our own NDP leader, Wab Canoe, who was present, by the way, at the convention. He was seen shaking hands, and I he may have been making speeches. I didn't watch the full 18 hours of this convention, although that would be 18 hours of comedy. Let's be real, because I was going through a lot of it, and there are so many funny moments, so many funny moments. Anyway, so it was held here in Winnipeg. Let's just watch some videos and see what Avi had to say. Okay. This is him after he's announced as the winner of the leadership race.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
This guy's as radical as they come. Actually, no, he's not.
But even more important than the results of this leadership vote is the unity in our party. To that end, in my first act as leader, I want to invite our heroic caucus, my wonderful fellow candidates, and the labor leaders representing millions of workers who are the heart, soul, past, and future of our party to all join me on stage.
All right.
There may even be a premier in the House.
There may even be a premier in the House. Let's go, Wab Canoe. Yes, we'll get the clips, Dad. My goodness. You're worse than Kat when she asks for ice cream. Okay, we'll skip this. Dad's not excited about this. Okay, so I guess we could skip this too. Probably not interested about that. Okay, let's see. So I have timestamps of the clips because there's just too many to make actual sources for. So I got to go to the timestamp. So we're going to go to the 24-minute mark. All right. All right. Let's watch, shall we?
Absolute honor to introduce three of the people who have helped us along the way. We're so grateful to have with us this morning to nominate Avi Lewis, the legendary MP of Winnipeg Centre, Leah Gazan. Wrong video. There's another video that's like 9 hours. Sorry, we're going to jump to day 2. And this first one is at 5 hours. Sorry, guys. 5 hours and 58 minutes. Oh, here we go. Okay. We all know this lady.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry.
Oh, wait. I hope you got to go back.
We're going to be announced at the, as I understand it, what more election results we have are going to be announced at the end of the day.
I have a point of information for the elections
You're
committee.
white. Get out of here.
The Elections Committee has gone to do balloting and they're not available to answer your questions.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Microphone 1.
On the resolution.
No, on the resolution. Microphone 4, are you on a point?
Point of order, Robert Alley, he, they. My understanding as an equity-seeking delegate is that these cards are to help the chair hear equity-seeking persons and that we don't only hear from white male delegates. Now, this is my first convention, but so I could be wrong, but the reason the reason for my concern is that yesterday during the housing resolution,
this is the second day.
A white man spoke, someone at this mic waved their equity card only to give their speaking spot to a white man.
Oh no.
Now that white man being a leadership delegate notwithstanding, I had lined up for a long time to discuss the housing resolution, like many others, including my fellow delegate, Equi. I just want us as a body to understand the spirit of these cards, because we are a party governed by
the spirit of these cards, that anyone can talk except for white men. Do you see the way she looked at that white guy when he asked his question? She basically told him to F off and get off the stage, because we got people of color and people of minority groups to get to.
Processes and not by any sort of shock doctrine.
Shock doctrine.
Like I said before, it's my first convention, but I can tell tensions are high with the leadership contest, and I just want us to make sure that we remember our values that brought us here. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
For the information of delegates, I want to be very clear that at your convention, the equity card applies to gender equity. This is the decision you collectively have made. Those delegates from Ontario might remember that at the Ontario Convention, we used the cards more broadly for members of all equity-seeking groups. I'd encourage you to consider that as we move along.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Yes, technically we are aliens. I like to hold up my rainbow equity card. That's essentially what he was doing. This next one's pretty good too. Let's jump to it. I'm sure you all seen this one. This one's near the very end of the second day. 9:19. Oh, that's good enough.
Thank you. Down. Those opposed? For its hard work. I will thank the committee for its hard work. I see that we are 1 minute ahead of schedule, and so I'm going to get out of here. The balloting co-chairs are returning, I believe. Now balloting co-chairs. There's a point. Let's hear the point on microphone 1.
I'm sorry, just real quick, point of personal privilege. I understand there's very little time, and for
point of personal privilege. Got to make sure she's showcasing her privilege.
For delegates to speak.
Or he? Or should they?
But early on the mic, it's hard as a racialized and transgender delegate to.
Oh yeah. Racial and transgender. He. All the boxes are checked.
Sometimes use this card and speak up, speak to somebody in front of me in line and ask, hey, this pertains to multiple intersecting parts of my lived experience. I'd like to speak. I was rejected when I talked, and it's frustrating when these are my rights being directly under attack right now in Alberta, and that a cisgender woman had spoken over me. And
oh no. You see that? Her rights are under attack because a cisgender woman spoke over her. The poor lady. She needs protection.
And I understand her rights are important too. This pertains to her too, but I don't...
Are they really though? Are they?
No, I hope that in the future the federal NDP will also have a broader interpretation of the equity cards for speakers. That's all. Thank you.
I will invite delegates to assist me in better using the card by forming a straight line behind the microphone. With
I think was she making a stab at the pun that is straight, the word straight, like saying that she was going to emphasize a straight line because of the word straight. You can't emphasize straight. What was interesting is what was she saying? She was basically saying that in the future we need to make sure not to include cis females into the minority category. Is that what she was saying? That the cis females are too privileged to be given these equity cards or to have priority because of the equity cards? Uh-oh. I'm all alone here. Anyways, that was that part. Let's move on to 606. Clickety click. 606.
No.
Thank you, Delegate. Microphone 2, are you on this resolution?
Yes.
Microphone 2, please.
My name is Mastura Tasneem. My pronouns are she, they.
With
I'm
her
from
Palestine
Ontario.
drip.
Hello, bonjour. As we conduct this convention today and the past 2 days, right now there's discussions of 10,000 American men and women being sent to Iran, being deployed just to be part of this bloodbath. Canada cannot and will not be part of the legacy of blood that was built in Iraq, in Palestine, and now in Iran. This is a...
What the hell is she talking about? What does Canada have to do with Israel and Palestine? She's just going on a rampage listing all the different conflicts that are occurring in the world. Notice that she's not making note of, the conflict in Nigeria or other conflicts in Africa, where hundreds of thousands of people are being slaughtered because they are not Muslim. It's the Jews. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. my video's going to get blocked now. But, yeah. And she also didn't make any note about the conflict in between Russia and Ukraine, which I'm not going to say too much about, but it's just interesting how it's all about the Muslims. Gotta focus on the Muslims who are being genocided, despite the fact that there's over 100 Muslim majority countries on the planet.
No question debate. I call this question, Madam and Chairs. Thank you.
I want to hear the answer to this question. It's a very important question.
Your point's quite well made, Speaker. I'll again thank delegates not to call me Madam Chair or Madame la Présidente. I'm a non-binary person. My pronouns are they, them, and their. Chair is sufficient.
Yes! Yes, they!
And with regret, you've spoken to the resolution. It's not open to you to also call the question. If the question is the will of the House, someone else must call it because we heard from you in substantive debate.
Check your privilege. You were assuming your privilege there. Man. This is comedy gold, honestly. I wish I was with you guys laughing at this. But then I wouldn't be here showing you this, so. What a thought. Oh, a little too hard. What's this one?
And so as to ensure that the products that are produced in a country that does have other coming carbon
information, delegate. And now we're going to go to the vote on this motion.
No, this must be a wrong one. 852. Actually, Dad, you brought up that the thing has trouble of hearing. I think that's the next one. Where the non-binary thing was complaining about their hearing.
I will remind the Assembly once again to take your non-resolution duties outside of the House. I have a hearing impairment and I'm struggling to hear the delegates, and I know that you are too. They listened politely when it was your turn, or they will when you make your way to the mortifying microphone. Let's have some order.
One person laughs in the crowd.
I did want to bring attention to the fact that a fellow delegate is holding
the
gender parity cards.
Let's take the microphone to that delegate. We'll hear from them right now.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to go first because someone else has a more valid equity card.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
She, her. I'd like to speak against the motion as well, for the reason that we also have many advanced voting days. So there are...
What she has to say is not important. All we need to know is that clearly, I have to say the guy that said that she should go first, pretty based. He just looked at her and was like, yeah, she needs this more than I do. She needs more equity, diversity, and inclusion than I do. She's more special than I am because I'm just gay. She's got all sorts of problems, apparently. Is he based or is he rude? What is he? I don't know. That was pretty, what do they call that? That was a blatant microaggression, in my opinion. There's more closed captioning stuff. Oh, we got to talk about yeah. Okay. This one's fun. Oh, you know what? Sorry. I forgot. We can't go over all of this stuff. There's something very important we need to do first. Just give me 1 second. I should have done this first. This was very inconsiderate of me. Especially given the nature that this is a public forum and we're in Canada. And anytime. Where was that? 6 hours. Okay, just remember 6 hours because we're going to come back to it. We got to follow due process here. We skip something very important. How rude of me. Okay, let's go 24:03. We'll start there. Okay. This is what we should have started with. My bad. Very inconsiderate.
Of good-paying infrastructure jobs. He's
Yeah.
the NDP
Quiet.
party that's got back to purpose to remind us that our NDP all of its chosen. We are moving
why?
forward together.
What the heck? No, I want 24. There we go.
Language with courage and vigor in a space that was not made
Yeah.
for people
Get
that
to the
looks
important
like her.
stuff.
We'll be taking time on Sunday to honor and remember both of them, along with other New Democrats we've lost since the last
Not
convention.
this. Here we go. Okay, so this is very important. I should have started with this. I want to formally apologize for not doing this first. I jumped the gun, and I'm sorry. And I ask that I am publicly ridiculed because of this, and that you guys torment me. And I think I should probably lose my job over this because I forgot to do this, and canceled in every way, shape, and form. But I'm going to try and rectify that by playing this now. My apologies.
Now, to start off today's events in a good way, I'd like to acknowledge that Winnipeg is located on Treaty 1 territory. We are speaking to you today from the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, also known as Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples. We recognize that Manitoba is also the traditional homeland of the Anishinaabe, Inuit, and Dene peoples. We also stand on the national homeland of the Red River Métis.
Let's go!
Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nations in Treaty 3 territory, and our electricity is produced in Treaty 5 territory. We acknowledge and respect the treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the colonial violence that took place, and dedicate ourselves to moving forward.
I'd like to know what violence that was. You know, I've done a lot of research on European and I don't even like saying the word, but First Nations people. And there's not much in the way of violence between the Europeans and the First Nations. Most of the warring that took place was Europeans against each other with the help of First Nations, and it was mostly First Nations fighting against themselves. The one bad thing that really occurred was the fact that the natives contracted a lot of viruses, which is just natural when you move to a new land and I got really sick when I moved back to Manitoba after living in BC for many years. But anyways.
In the spirit of reconciliation and true collaboration.
In the spirit of reconciliation and true collaboration. Beautiful. I'm sorry I didn't play that earlier. I completely forgot. And I just want to remind you guys again, in case you forgot, that you should be considerate here. Because she is. Oh, sorry.
Hello, friends.
She's not a she.
My name is Adrian Smith. My
Adrian.
pronouns
She's a.
are they, them.
They, them. Whoops.
Equi. I will thank you not to call me Madam Chair or Madame la Présidence.
Please do not call her Madam Chair. Damn it. I did it again. Please do not call it, they, Madam Chair or Madam President.
Je suis ici avec.
Oh, okay. That's it for that one. All right. I think I have one more good one for you guys. You've probably all seen these already. I don't know why you're getting so caught up in these. We've all seen these. Okay. Now we're moving on to the 6 hour mark. Oh, we have two more. Oh, no. One more. Last one. This is the last one, ladies and gentlemen.
Of their sovereignty and their
What did I just do? My bad. 6 hours. Ah, yes. Okay,
as
here we
we
go.
move along towards the future that we all deserve.
Here we go.
Is there a further point?
Save the best for last.
Hello? Hi, Equi from Prong, pronouns she, her, Whippy, Ontario. I would like to echo the sentiments of my friend Robert here. Yesterday, this card was used in an inappropriate manner. And while I understand in Ontario we know this is equity, even if that, this was also used inappropriate in terms of gender. I want
Inappropriate. It was used inappropriate.
everyone to be mindful that these cards for
That made me think of Cartman. It was used inappropriate. That card was used inappropriate, guys. Let's go back and listen to that again.
we know this is equity, even if that, this was also used inappropriate in terms.
It was used inappropriate, guys. Come on, Kai. You guys know how to use the car. Kai, come on, it's inappropriate.
Of gender. I want everyone to be mindful that these cards for individuals like myself who identify as a black woman have no value outside of this space. Many of us are living in most of the most oppressive conservative governments across this country.
So oppressive.
I'm from Ontario.
Oh.
A lot of you are dealing with this in places like Alberta as well as Saskatchewan. To abuse the privilege of this card means that we don't allow individuals like myself.
Oh, I have so many family members who live in Ontario. They're so oppressed. So oppressed. I have nieces who are women. I have a sister who's a woman. She wears glasses too sometimes. I have another sister who doesn't wear glasses, but she's also identifies as a woman. They're all so oppressed. Oh, my grandparents live in Alberta. Also, so very impressed. Impressed? Oppressed. Fortunately, I don't know anyone in Saskatchewan, so we don't have to worry about that.
With intersections that have been used for unpaid labor to build this party, that means that they go unnoticed and that they are disrespected. I want people to be mindful of what this card means as we continue convention. It's not enough to say that we believe in gender equity, and it's not enough to say that we are intersexual and value social justice if we do not model that behavior inside and outside of this space. Thank you.
Preach, sister.
Very well
Preach.
made point, Delegate. Thank you.
If the NDP took to the streets to protest, she'd be at the front of the line for sure. I could see her. She reminds me of like the pink-haired girl who's screaming in the camera. You know, the meme. Anyways, that's all the videos for the NDP that we have today. I was expecting a lot more feedback while we watched those. Did I lose you guys or something? Or are you guys just so ingrained and fixated on the comedy show? You guys still there? It says I got people watching. Don't tell me you got bored with that. You guys have been begging for that for the last hour. Let's hear your thoughts. Come on, guys. Get active. It's chat time. Don't want to get canceled. Yeah, but you're Critical Chris Fan 2.0. Where I go, you go. I really want to know. One day, I'm going to uncover who you guys are. You're cleaning. Oh. Well, at least tell me you enjoyed that. Because we're going to get on to more boring stuff now. This is why I wanted to finish with this. I wanted to end with this because this was the fun stuff. Now I got to go back to the stuff that you guys might find boring. Well, that's good. That's good. At least you guys enjoyed it. All right. I think I just deleted all my stuff. No. Okay. Good. Thanks, George. I have no idea who you are, but I think you know Gabe, because when I mentioned Gabe the other day, you said, no, you're not him, but you didn't say, who is Gabe, which makes me think that you know him somehow. Jordan? Jor? Your name starts with Jor. Anyways. Okay, so back to regular old boring news. we're going to touch on. I have to add this to my screen now. Oh. Sorry, please hold. Mystery Man. All my fans are mystery men. I have no idea who they are. I'm guessing that the Critical Chris fans are my cousins, aunt and uncle maybe, all trolling me. But anyways, okay. So, Liberal Party supporters are probably celebrating another successful policy move as Canada's Liberal government announced this week that it has finally hit NATO's 2% of GDP defense spending target for the fiscal year of 2025-26. I'm not. You know who I am. Critical Chris fan? I can't remember. I'll go back through my chat and see. Anyways, from the Department of National Defense news release, which I will post here. Oop, wrong one. There we go. The government of Canada has achieved the North Atlantic Treaty Organization's NATO 2% of gross domestic product defense spending target in the 2025-26 fiscal year, marking a significant milestone in Canada's approach to the national defense and collective security. Canada is investing more than $63 billion in defense across the Department of National Defense, the Canadian Armed Forces, and other government partners. This represents a significant increase in defense spending over the past year, driven by targeted investments in military personnel, readiness, equipment, and infrastructure, as well as in the defense industrial base and in eligible defense expenditures across government, consistent with NATO reporting practices. That's their statement, by the way. I'm not saying this. Now, let's see if this highlights a successful move toward Canada advancing its military readiness and effectiveness, or if this is just a case of, them spewing out creative counting by our Prime Minister. He is in the banking industry, after all. So, to start, the same Department of National Defense report indicates that in 2025-26, over $14 billion in spending from other government departments contributed to Canada's defense expenditures, including investments in cybersecurity, space procurement, and support to veterans. Key contributors include Veteran Affairs Canada, the Communications Security Establishment, and Global Affairs Canada, reflecting the broad scope of Canada's defense and security activities. All right. So what they're essentially saying here is that we've seen a focus on spending for Global Affairs Canada, Veteran Affairs Canada, and the Communications Security Establishment. Spending in these departments meet NATO's requirements without actually achieving the goal of increasing combat readiness and effectiveness. So they're just taking departments that have nothing to do with our military, increase spending in those departments, which already receive a ton of spending anyways, to the tune of billions and billions of dollars, which I could just provide an example here. Let me throw that up there. So, for example, I think it's table 17? Yeah. Okay, so you can see here, $7 billion this year for one of those departments out of the 63. So yeah, these departments receive a lot of money, and they've been increasing the amount of funds going into these departments without actually putting money towards what would be considered essential for NATO spending. So where else is the money coming from? So as per the Governor General and Council, so her actually, let me throw that one up there too. Boom. Gotta find this one now too. So okay, yeah, here we go. So several $billion has also been transferred from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans to the Department of National Defense. So this is the Canadian Coast Guard. So in order to illegitimately make it seem like Canada's hit its 2% NATO funding target, which this is something that has been a sticking point between Trump and other NATO members, is that he's been consistently saying that the U.S. makes up the bulk of NATO funding, which it does, and that other countries aren't, they're not keeping up their end of the bargain. And Canada's been lackluster on that, to say the least. And so they're trying to present themselves as making up lost ground over the years. But in doing so, they're actually, as you can see, they're basically falsifying the report. So what they've done here with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans is they've taken something that's already been historically funded under a completely different department and then moved it to the Department of Defense and said, hey, look, we have billions of dollars that we're adding to the funding of our military, when in reality they haven't done anything. It's not like they've invested billions of dollars in new Coast Guard equipment or anything like that. They've just literally transferred it from one department to a department that's relevant to NATO spending. So that's good accounting. All right. So there's a Conservative MP who has had words to say about this. And we're going to listen to what he has to say.
Good morning, everyone.
Let's throw that up there. Put that there. And let's go.
Today we want to respond to Mark Carney's announcement that Canada's hit the NATO 2% spending target, but that doesn't mean that Canada's any stronger. As we know that all this increased defense spending that he's bragging about today is actually an illusion. We know that through creative accounting that government spending in national defense has increased by over $10 billion. That hasn't actually resulted in increased capabilities for the Canadian Armed Forces. It has not actually increased our own security or made us safer here at home. We are still sitting with many fleets, whether it's in the Air Force, the Army, or the Navy, that are unserviceable. Only 50% of the Canadian Armed Forces equipment is deployable. And we know that that's impacting on our operational readiness and our interoperability with our allies. They still haven't replaced our CF-18s. They committed to buying the F-35s, and here we are still waiting almost a year since Mark Carney.
Okay, so he just goes on to talk about how a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about for years about the need to improve, we haven't improved it. So he just goes over that. And yes, he's a conservative to my liberal friends out there, but he's not just talking out of his ass. We'll cover that in just a second. I'm going to pull up this data here just to cover what I'm about to talk about. Okay. What's up? So this is directly from the Department Results Report, and this is about the Department of Defense and military spending. So a big chunk of the jump came, as I said, from moving existing budgets into the defense column and using NATO's broad rules along with some creative accounting and funding changes to make it appear as if Canada has met its required spending. But what does that actually have to do in terms of real-world application? So let's look at the report here. So owing to persistent personnel and capability shortfalls, readiness has continued to decline for the years 2024-2025, which is the last available report, which is what the 2% spending was referring to anyways. So let's talk about maritime key fleet serviceable. 59% is serviceable. So out of our entire, that's to do with the Navy, only 60% of our entire Navy is actually serviceable, like ready and serviceable. Land key fleets, that's Army, 51%. Now, for the maritime key fleets, the target for this year was 60%. So they almost hit the target, and that was the closest one to hitting their target, but they were shy of that. The Army fleet, the land key fleet serviceable, was 51%. Now, I can actually show that up, too. I can just do this. 51%. There you go. You can see these numbers here now. Okay, so percent of land key fleet. So the target was 70%. 51%. So they're 20% off on that. So only half of our military is serviceable when it comes to the Army. Aerospace, 42%. That's down here. 24, 25, 42%. So it's actually reduced. So we had 56% of our Army that was capable, and then it went down to the 49%, and then it jumped up 2%. The maritime did increase slightly, and I think that has to do with spending towards the icebreakers. But even that we're not going to see for another 15, 20 years, so it's irrelevant. But then aerospace dropped dramatically from 48.9 to 42%. And then force elements ready for operations is at 61%. That's in the page as well. I'm just reading because I don't want to have to scramble through all that all the time. The target for that was 90%, so we're way off on that as well. And then the target for the aerospace was 85%. Fell short dramatically. We do have some, so these targets fell short because they were supposed to be achieved last year. They weren't even close. This one still has some time. It's not supposed to be achieved until 2028. Mark Carney did announce something about aerospace investments, but the announcement was highly unrealistic. Said that he was going to build a satellite system for, I believe it was internet. Don't quote me on that. I don't want to have to make an amendment, but I believe it was internet, and said it's going to rival Elon Musk's Starlink. Not even close. Okay, so what do we have to say about that in closing? So, billions have been reclassified and shifted on paper. The actual Canadian Armed Forces still face the same recruiting shortfalls, maintenance backlogs, and aging equipment problems. New ships and planes won't arrive for years, if ever. The F-35s, how long have they been talking about that? For 20 years now? That's an exaggeration, but they've been talked about for a long, long time. Readiness metrics are still missing targets badly. So has Canada technically achieved the required 2% spending to satisfy NATO requirements? Technically, yes. But has that been done through legitimate methods that will actually see any positive outcomes in terms of military readiness and effectiveness? I'll let you guys decide, but let's be real. The answer is no. Yeah, I actually saw a video today that I might share with you on that note, just showcasing the difference between the U.S. military and the Canadian military. It is absolutely insane. Oh, did I end up? Oh, I didn't. Sorry. Here's the page. I forgot to show you guys the page. Yeah, there it is there. These are the spending targets here. Did I show you guys that? Or did I forget to click it? Anyways, it's all there. I'll put the links up. You guys will have access to these links in the future. Just for those who are arriving late, the website is up. It does need some work, but it is up. So you'll have you'll have access to all my sources and all my amendments on the things that I've gotten wrong and stuff. All right. In other news, so there was a poll released. Was it today? I believe it was today. By Angus Reid that suggests. So they did this poll because it was really recently announced that Australia would be potentially, I don't know if it's official yet, but they'd potentially be introducing a ban on social media for children under the age of 16. And I thought this was interesting, so I thought we'd cover this. So there was a poll done for Canada, and it says that banning children under 16 from social media platforms widely supported by parents and most Canadians. Where can we find the website, like a link? Well, I'm going to post the links in the description later on, but then my website is www.criticalchris.com. Very simple. It's just the name of my channel.com. I don't have the sources up yet. That's the one section of the website that I haven't finished. I've had to do a lot this weekend. It's been a busy weekend. But I do have one of my amendments up already, so you can check that out. The website is not complete, but it is live. So head there if you guys want to check it out and that stuff. Don't click the subscribe or like the contact or anything like that, because I haven't set that up yet. So just be aware. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, so on that note, so they it seems like 75%. What was it? 75? Where does it say that? Yeah, 75 say they support a full ban on social media use for anyone under the age of 16. But what I find interesting, though, because I don't agree with a ban if it's done by the government. However, I think the idea, and maybe we can chat about this. I'll turn this into a chat. I think the idea has some merit behind it in terms of restricting children's access to social media, which is why I kind of agree with the results from this part of the poll, which says that although a ban which will reportedly be discussed by the Liberal Party at its convention in April would be welcomed by most parents, more say that the responsibility for regulating social media use should fall to the parents, 72%, rather than governments. I agree with that. Can I make merch? The Critical Chris fan 6.7, man. Oh, How many of you guys are there? This is hilarious. It's just, I'm not going to know, like, you guys are going to have no, like, identifying handles. It's just all Critical Chris fans. It's going to become a meme. All 7 of you. Yeah. So yeah, it's critical Chris chat time, but kids have to go outside and touch grass. I agree with that 100%. So yeah, like, I personally think that we should be focused as a society and in our local communities in an army that should replace the Canadian Army, the Critical Chris Army. Oh man, 6'7". That's Zach. That's got to be Zach or Julien. Or one of the boys, 6'7", because the name's 6'7", or it's an adult trolling. But I don't think the government should have any say in this, which it sounds like it says right here. Now this is Angus Reid. They're a pretty reliable source, so I'll take it at its word for now. But it sounds like they're going to be discussing it at their convention, because like I said, this is being talked about. This is being tabled at the very least in Australia, if it hasn't already been passed. Yeah, I agree. But I think that should be left up to the parents. I think parents should be the ones that decide that kind of thing. It shouldn't be the government that is in control. What I do find very interesting about this, though, is that this is being tabled at the same time that several censorship bills have been approved and received royal assent by our Governor General and have been placed into law. So I hope that this doesn't tie into that in any way. And I hope it is decided by the parents of the children. They're doing it in schools. Now that I'm okay with. Like, when I was a kid, we didn't have phones in school. And when we did have phones, there was teachers that would make us put the phones in a basket because phones were relatively new at the time. So, yeah, video games too. We spent too much time on video games. It's highly addictive, and there's a lot of studies that talk about this, and I've seen a lot of content on that, and I mean, I think everyone pretty much agrees with that. It's just, how do you do it? How do you implement that? I don't think the government should be in charge of it. What do you guys think? Actually, I think I could do a poll. That'd be fun. Let's do a poll. I'm going to start my own poll. Should the government be in charge of banning social media for kids? All right, let's start the poll. Let's see what we get. We should go back to parents disciplining kids in general. Yeah, I agree with that. All right, so far we got no 100%. 3 votes. Everyone said no so far. We got 7 people who are currently watching, so let's get all 7 of you guys acting. Let's go. Let's get 7. Not 6, just 7. Not 6 or 7. Not 6, 7. 7. We only have one more thing after this, and then we're going to be closing out for the day. So, any more voters? Or are we ending it at 3? We got 4 people that aren't partaking. Let's go, people. Oh, I think one of them's me. I want to say no. There we go. Let parents parent and the govern. I agree. Dad, did you add to the poll? We got 2 more. Okay. We'll cut it off there. Don't want to leave people waiting. All right. Good job, ladies and gents. 100% no. Looks like all 5 of us are in agreement. All right. The final topic we're going to touch on, and this one is going to be very brief, just a quick video. So, Toronto considers not-for-profit grocery stores. City Council is reviewing proposals for publicly supported non-profit grocery outlets modeled in places like New York City as a way to tackle food affordability, because we know how well Ma'am Danny's doing up there in New York. Nothing like socialism. We're going to watch the video real quick. Grab the belt. We're still on that, huh? All right, let's watch this.
It was an idea served up by New York Mayor Zoran Mamdani that's been gaining momentum.
An admitted
Not-for-profit,
communist.
city-run grocery stores.
Motion 4A carries the...
Now, the city of Toronto voted Thursday to become one of the first in North America to test out municipally operated grocery stores. 4 locations meant to create more competition against the privately owned grocery giants by offering food items at a subsidized price.
To ensure that the lowest possible food prices are attained.
Grocery shoppers with an appetite to try anything to cut food costs.
I think anything that we try that's innovative, and if it works, why not?
Just ask Maria Sanchez, who struggles every week to afford quality foods.
I'm a single mother, and it's just hard to find good, especially products.
But there's a belief the city is biting off more than it can chew, with profit margins for food already razor thin.
Every dollar that you put through at the till, there's about 4 cents that is coming back as profit. Can they match the purchasing power and the efficiency of the for-profit sector and then deliver it without that profit motive?
I wonder if he
Other
benefits.
Canadian cities watching closely. Ottawa has its staff exploring the idea.
There are people that are very positive towards it, and there are people that are very much against it.
While Vancouver councillors instead wanting to put more money into already existing independent grocers and co-ops.
And allow them to do what they already know how to do rather than us step in and try and take over in something that we have absolutely no expertise in.
Toronto City staff are expected to report back to council with the plan a year from now.
All right, you guys get it. What do you guys think of that? I think that's a brilliant idea, huh? Let's let government take over what should be left to the free market and watch that entire sector completely collapse. Because they want to undercut grocery stores because apparently 3% profit margins are far too high. So, yeah, that'll go well. I think you guys know what I think about it. What do you guys think about that? Oh, there's only 5 of you now. I guess I lost a bunch. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Local small farms. Wink. Very much so. But in reality, though, I think local communities, local gardens, local farms are definitely a great way to offset that without utilizing the government and their natural ability to completely destroy markets. But like Elmer's. Yeah, no, small farms for sure. I think big farms are actually some of the worst lobbyists from what I've read so far. Maybe I'll do a video on that. Does that sound like something you guys would be interested in? Video on agriculture lobbyists? Because I'm assuming those hurt small farms. They're definitely protectionist, that's for sure. They don't want new people coming into the market. That's glue, not food, 6-7. Well, that's it for the content in terms of new stuff. But, yeah, on that note, though, I definitely agree. Local communities, I mean, I do like when some cities have those local gardens and stuff. I like what I'm seeing out in rural communities where people are starting up their farms and stuff like that. Small-scale farms run by families and small communities and stuff that cater to their local community. I think that benefits everyone greatly. It also introduces competition without government oversight. What needs to happen to see that more often, though, is less regulation, less permitting, quicker permitting, decrease in taxes. I'm sure there's a lot of things. Maybe I'll have a guest. I actually know someone who has a startup that that's been quite successful, and I'm sure they have a lot that they'd like to discuss on that topic. Perhaps they'd like to join me one day and have a discussion. She was here. Cynthia was here. It was liberal. Your favorite lib, I think, was her name today. Maybe she hopped in and left. She's not talking too much. I think she missed the entire Carney thing, thankfully, I guess. So, you guys all agree then that video what you want to video. More topics, the better. Video what you want to video. Yeah, no. Regarding the videos, though, I think you're right. The deep dives and the investigative reporting should be done in an actual pre-recorded format, so I'm not all over the place. Because I got to admit, I was pretty lost. I had to keep jumping back and forth between my sources because I'm not just going to talk without providing sources, and then I'd get lost on where I was in my notes. Oh, Cassidy. Oh, thanks for joining, Cassidy. I thought that was someone else. Nice to meet you, Cassidy. Thank you for joining. You might be the first person, if you're telling the truth, you might be the first person that I don't know. Thank you very much for joining. Hopefully we didn't scare you away too with some of our content. It's all fun and games here. Everyone's welcome. Just know that not everyone's going to agree with you. Doesn't mean we don't respect you. Yeah, everyone welcome Cassidy. Thank you for joining. Likes in the chat for her. Or they. But anyways, that's all I have. Do you guys have any questions? You guys have any comments? I'd like some feedback, though, on that. Like, you guys agree? Recorded format for investigative reporting? Well, because it was kind of long and drawn out, and I was all over. I wasn't... I 100% agree with you. I think it should have been recorded. And then maybe we could have just done a live stream covering the recording. And maybe just, like, going over key points in the recording and stuff. Because there's a lot of people that I follow that are involved in Canadian politics, but I haven't seen anyone yet that involves their fan base, that allows them to have feedback. Which is why I wanted to do the live stream. I wanted to see what people had to say while I was talking, but I guess it's just too convoluted. Beloved Carney actually is. Yeah, I know. I was hoping she was going to watch this one too, because I think her and I were talking about this. I was telling her a little bit about Carney the other day, and I think she was the one that gave me the idea to. She's like, well, if you're going to talk about it, then report it. So then I was like, okay, I'll report on it. But then I guess she's busy with the kids today. Yeah, I mean, that's true. But the thing is comments don't come up very much on my videos. I think you need to get a pretty large following before you start to see a lot of comments. So one thing I'm going to ask you guys before I sign off here, because I'm going to sign off in a minute. One thing I'm going to ask of you guys is to leave some comments in the actual comment field later on all my videos. If you could do that, that'd be really great. You'd be helping me out. Cassidy, if you liked this video, please subscribe. Make sure to like and subscribe the video. But yeah, following when I'm done the live stream, later on, come back to the video and throw up a quick comment about what your thoughts were and stuff like that whenever you have the time. That really helps out with the YouTube algorithm, and it really helps me out so I can know where to go from here. And also, anytime you guys have ideas about content that I should be covering, if you hear about anything on X or anything like that, I know all you guys know me, but there might be someone who watches this who doesn't know me, so either leave that idea on the YouTube videos on my channel or on my website, and I will take a look into the topic, because there's no shortage of things to talk about, that's for sure. Sometimes it's a little overwhelming, to be honest. Yeah, leave a comment on the comments section. Sorry, Dad. All right. Well, I love all you guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you to my lovely fiance, Kat, for my baby, for being patient with me and dealing with me for doing this for several hours. She was very patient this week, and I spent a lot of hours doing the research on this. So thank you very much for her patience and her support. All right, guys. I'll see you guys on Wednesday at 7:30.